Skylark is Shelley's romantic ode, a quintessentially romantic in nature, which is addressed to a songster, and it is an unmatched deification and the splendor of the natural world. It shows Shelley's veneration of the natural beauty and its spiritual power. Shelley believed Skylark to be an embodiment of unearthly joy and happiness. The bird is a platonic symbol of the ideal spirit of poetry. Mrs. Shelley, Mary Shelley says, in the spring we spent a week or two near Leghorn, boarding the house of some friends who were absent on a journey to England. It was on a beautiful summer evening, while wandering among the lanes whose myrtle hedges were the bowers of the fireflies, that we heard the caroling of the skylark, which inspired one of the most beautiful of his poems. So the skylark sets a contrast between the joy of the spirit of the ideal poet embodied in the bird and the depression of the earthy poet still longing for the moral regeneration of man's mind, which is but to recognize Shelley's growing despair that man would ever realize a world's great age. Doubtless, he took momentary delight in the surrounding of Cassarisi, for his resiliency of spirit was remarkable during this period of stay in Italy. In the very first stanza, the skylark is both a real bird and a spiritual symbol that the poet welcomed. Yet we soon perceive that Shelley is going to begin relatively close to the ground with natural particulars. The bird glides throughout the vast blue sky, flying as it sings and singing as it flies and soars. The bird is not earthbound like the human, but it's a winged self, a winged creature that soars higher and higher. Shelley used Plato's myth of the winged soul in the Phaedrus as the philosophical basis of this. His symbolism of the bird in the skylark. Woven into the imagery of the poem are three main threads of development: observation of the nature and the skylark, mainly suggested by the spot in Italy. These three strands of meaning, natural, personal and philosophical, are so blended in the design, the matrix of the poem, that they bring artistic wholeness to its structure and unity to its idea and the concept. The skylark is like a bright star in the sky that cannot be seen during the day. The speaker cannot see the bird but still hears its high-pitched song. So the text, higher, still higher, from the earth thou springest like a cloud of fire, the blue deep thou wingest, the singing still does soar, and soaring ever singest. We go back to the first stanza: hail to thee, blithe spirit bird, thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strain of unpremeditated art. So the poet welcomed this bird or spirit which has seemed to have come from heaven. So it's a divine being, a divine creature, and it's pouring its heart in profuse sound of crystalline stream. It's an unmatched music which is spontaneous, it's unpremeditated, and the poet knows it represents the spontaneity and unpremeditated art. So it's flying higher and higher, and poet captures its delightful song as it soars, singing, and soar ever singers. Shelley wrote Skylark in 1820 after hearing the bird's distinctive calls. Doubtless he took momentary delight in the surrounding. Moreover, its unity, its steady progression to climax in imagery, structure, and meaning will be clearly seen to depend upon the consistency of the ideas suggested by the skylark as a symbol. The sun begins to set, giving off a golden illumination, and it illuminates the surrounding clouds. The bird drifts above the glimmering sky as if it's a disembodied form of happiness only just beginning a race. The faint purple evening makes way for the skylark's flight, dissolving around it and enveloping the bird. That's the substance of this stanza, which opens with the line, "In the golden light of the sunken sun, over which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy whose race has just begun." So it's a form of happiness, and it has just started its race, and it starts glowing in the purple evening and makes way for the flight. The evening colors are suffused, and it's dissolving around the skylark and enveloping the bird. Shelley pursues two main lines of thought in the poem. The first is an effort to determine to its own satisfaction with what the singing bird is comparable. So he heaps upon simile, and a range of simile is used to describe the beauty of the song, the coloring of the bird. The reader merely learns what the singing skylark brings to Shelley's mind in the way of similes. Shelley clearly indicates his three main divisions. The first 6 stanzas are the poem. He does not say that he sees the bird, but it would seem that he has watched it leave the ground and disappear into the bright clouds above the setting sun, for he says that the pale purple even melt around thy flight like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. So the poet unmistakably finds the beauty of this bird in its sweet, sonorous sound. Shelley has converted the bird or especially the bird's song into a symbol of happiness. The poem then is not so much about a skylark or a bird as it's about the happiness. The singing bird is personified as a blithe or a happy spirit in the first line of the poem. A skylark soars into the sky singing happily as it flies upward. The clouds of the evening makes it invisible, but its song enables the poet to follow its flight. The rhyme scheme of each stanza is extremely simple: A, B, A, B, B. The skylark is his greatest natural metaphor for pure poetic expression, the harmonious madness of pure inspiration. The skylark's song issues from a state of purified existence. The speaker deems the skylark's song as bright and piercing as moonbeam, whose powerful glow is dimmed by the bright white of the morning sky, although its light is difficult to make out. The speaker notes people still perceive that it's present there, keen as are the arrow of that silver sphere. So the bright lights of the sky, the silver sphere is the term for sky, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn's glare until we hardly see, we feel that it's there. It disappears quietly in the broad daylight, but poet can still feel and hear its joyous song. The skylark's rich call seemed to fill the whole sky and earth below, reminding the speaker of the moon on a clear night. Its rays stream out from a solitary cloud, appearing to fill the sky until it overflows. The earth and air seems to be filled with its song and resounding. The bird continues to soar, rising higher and higher from the earth, which reminds the speaker of billowing flame. The speaker lovingly described the intensity and beauty of the skylark's song, playing up the call's musical quality to drive home just how captivating this music is. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud, the moon rains out her beams and heaven is overflowed. So, like in the night, the cloud capped moon rains its beam. This breathy spirit is coloring in the broad daylight. This is a transitional stanza apostrophizing the skylark. This stanza and the following four answer Shelley's question in many figures. The stanza effects the change from the natural real skylark to a being apprehensible only through figurative comparison that reveals every aspect of its hidden beauty. As human beings do not truly understand the power of skylark, the speaker asks the bird for help finding a worthy comparison for itself, asking the skylark what other creature or thing is most like itself. The speaker explains that even the light reflecting water droplets of the rainbow clouds pale in comparison to the shower of beautiful music that the skylark rains down. So the text, what thou art we know not, what is most like thee, from rainbow cloud there flows not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. So this divine creature is going to shower a rain of melody, very much like the rainbow glory at the time of clouds. But the poet fails to understand what is the true comparison for the bird and its song. So the bird's song is like a poet composing poetry. It is unimpeded song, rains down upon the world, surpassing every other beauty, inspiring metaphor and making the speaker believe that the bird is not a mortal bird at all, but a spirit, a fairy, a sprite. The skylark's song surpasses all forms of music. It's a divine expression, an ideal beyond the reach of human who knows happiness only through sadness. The poem is sparked by inspiration, fueled by aspiration, and carries a philosophical insight, says a critic. But the skylark is basically not joyous indeed. It is a poem of yearning for the ecstatic joy of the skylark poet, the unattainable perfection of the ideal. The source of the poet's inspiration is his use of the myth of the soul from Plato's Phaedrus. So The text like a poet hidden in the light of thought. The delicate image, it's like the poet hidden in the web of his thoughts, singing hymns unbidden, till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fear it heeded not. So the sky itself is overflowing with light, and the maiden's lovely music overflows her bower. Spring showers liven up flowers. Throughout the 21 stanza, the poet explored this realm of spirituality, comparing the bird with numerous things. The first 4 lines of each stanza are metered in Trochaic trimeter, the 5th in iambic hexameter, which is also known as Alexandrine. The skylark song is like a maiden making a music which inspires Shelley to feel a frantic, rapturous joy. There is no part of pain or human misery. The young woman secretly sings from the tower of castle to comfort her soul, lovelorn soul, which is burdened by love. Her songs are as delightful as love itself, and they fill her chamber. So the poet compares the songs of this maiden with the song of skylark, like a high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. So the poet invites a number of similes to compare the song of skylark and its caroling. Shelley uses water-related imagery to describe the power of the skylark song. It's a flood of rapture, a rain of melody, a crystal scene, for example. All these are the similes he has heaped upon the song for the sake of comparison. Through this imagery, water comes to represent many things, including intense, overwhelming emotion, artistic inspiration, and the communication of that emotion and inspiration. The poetry is essentially an expression of imagination for the romantic. In the coming stanza, the song is compared to a glowworm scattering light. It is similar to a radiant glowworm in a small dew covered with valley. Not out of obligation, but rather of its own free will, the glowworm distributes its glowing light among the plant life, which hides the insect from view. So, like a glowworm golden in a dell of dew. So it appears to the poet that this song is like the glowworm flickering around the dell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. So highly captivating imagery is used to decorate the texture of the poem. Next, the speaker links the song to a rose that is sheltered by its own leaves from warm gusts of air sweeping them away. The overwhelming sweetness of the flower's perfume intoxicates the nearby bees. It's like a rose diffusing its perfume. The simile in the last stanza have in common the fact that all 4 are like the now unseen skylark, out of the sight or not easily seen. But all these comparisons, they come from the splendor, the beauty of the natural world. to the text, like a rose embowered in its own green leaves, by warm winds deflower, till the scent it gives make faint with too much sweet those heavy-winged thieves. To these heavy-winged thieves are bees, which enjoy the sweetness of the deflowering rose, and the poet enjoys the comparison of skylark with this rose which is covered with the green leaf, and its perfume is there diffused in the air, and the simile in this stanza is full of the sweetness of the flower's perfume, which seems to intoxicate these bees. We have here the second stanza of transition in the next verse, in which the skylark music is said to surpass all forms of music. The stanza summarizes part 2 and carries us over from its comparison to the third, that the philosophical part of the poem, which accomplishes the skylark's metamorphosis into a symbol representing soul, the spirit of the ideal poet, and the soaring spirit of poetry, which is his essence. The speaker also depicts many natural objects and forces that exist within the sky, such as stars and weather, as magnificent and ethereal. The sound of rains on grass and the sight of the rain-awakened flowers are compared to skylark music, but it surpasses all. So the text, sound of vernal shower. Vernal is the woody shower on the twinkling grass. Rain awakened flowers, all that ever was joyous and clear and fresh, thy music doth surpass. So skylark music surpasses and overwhelms all those natural phenomena like the vernal shower on the tinkling grass, or the rain awakened flower, that's the source of joy. So, unsure whether the skylark is more like a bird or some divine spirit, the speaker asks the skylark to educate humankind about its source of inspiration, that is, what pure delightful thoughts shape lark's flood of ecstasy. The speaker claims to have never heard human lyrics worshipping things like romance and wine that were as heavenly as the skylark's impassioned outpouring of the emotion. So reading the next stanza, teach us, spirit of bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. To her, thought is rapturous, sweeter than the praises of love and wine. That's the substance of this stanza. The speaker contrasts in the next stanza this purity with the emptiness, insufficiency of human forms of expression. As a poet, the speaker seeks to learn from the joyful skylark, suggesting that the natural world contains truth that conventional forms of human communication, burdened in the poem by sadness and disillusionment, are unable to express. In the speaker's opinion, when compared to the bird's song, even wedding hymn and songs celebrating victories are nothing but hollow boasts that hint at unspoken desire for something more. So chorus hymnal are the wedding song, the bridal song of triumphal chant, and the hymns sung in the praises of bravery are matchless, with the song of the skylark matched with thine would be all but empty want. They are hollow boasts compared to the song of nightingale, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden wand, and we can find in human song there is an unspoken desire for something more. But skylark's song surpasses all. It's matchless, unparalleled, incomparable, a song in its beauty and splendor. The second line of thought in the poem is central to the verse. What Shelley asks is the secret that accounts for skylark's happiness. Manifested in song, the skylark is happy because it knows only what makes it happy. The speaker wonders aloud about the sources of inspiration behind the skylark call, asking the bird which objects have been the source of a joyful melody. Specific stretches of open land, bodies of water, or mountain ranges. What is, after all, the source of his joy? Formation of the sky or some grassland, love of other larks, or unfamiliarity with suffering. Are these the causes? So this stanza is full of number of rhetorical questions. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? So what inspired your song? What the source of inspiration? Are they some fields? What fields or waves or mountain? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? These are some of the incessant questions which shows Shelley's ecstasy in the presence of the skylark and its overflowing song. For Shelley, the skylark is a divine entity, a divine being, something more than flesh and blood and feather. It's a symbol of spiritual upliftment and represents all that human strives for but can never attain. So it's straining after the perfection, but the freedom from stresses and pain of mortal life is enjoyed by skylark. Due to the clear, intense happiness in the skylark's song and caroling, the speaker cannot imagine that is exhausted or has known any traces of irritation. The speaker concludes that the skylark loves but has never experienced the sadness that excessive love can bring. So reading the stanza, with thy clear keen joints languor cannot be, shadow of annoyance never come near thee, thou lovest but never know love's sad shady. So skylark's song is joyous. It knows no lethargy, no annoyance, and it knows no satiety or satisfaction of love. It's always young, it's always desirous, it's always satisfying. The human being know both what makes them happy and what makes them unhappy. They fear death because they are ignorant of what lies beyond death, among other reasons. But the skylark knows what lies beyond death, and the nature of what it knows banishes its fear of death. It is no wonder that it's incomparably happy. The speaker believes that skylark, whether conscious or not, must consider matters of death more deeply and insightfully than mere mortal human beings could imagine. The speaker wonders what else could explain how the skylark's music flows forth with such beauty and clarity and profusion. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortal dream. So skylark can reach beyond the realm of death and fathom the depths of mortality. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? So its notes, its joy is untainted by the fear of death. So the question leads him to an analysis of the human condition. Now, man knows pain, experiences weariness, annoyance, and loves satiety or satisfaction. He is plagued by hate and pride and fear. He cannot escape his past. Thoughts of the future cause him to worry. He longs for what does not exist, and his laughter is mixed with sorrow. This is the substance of the coming stanza which we are about to read. But the speaker elaborates on the differences between human concern and those of the skylark. People look towards the past and the future and long for what they do not have. Further, even the most genuine human laughter contains some sort of feel of pain or suffering, and the most pleasing songs of the people are composed and they express the most misery. So our sweetest songs are the saddest. But reading the text, we look before and after and pine for what is not. So we always lack something or the other in our life. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. And our sweetest songs are those that tell of the saddest thought. This is the human world. But the bird's song is free from all these worries. Even if humankind was incapable of crying and could reject hatred, vanity and fear, the speaker still does not believe that it would be able to approximate the skylark's bliss. The power of its organic melody is so unique to the natural world, it cannot be matched by the sound of human civilization. All this suggests that skylark embodies the universal splendor of the unnatural world. It's really unparalleled, matchless. So text, yet if we could scorn hate and pride and fear, that means if we could avoid all these miseries of human life, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how the joy ever should come near. Still man cannot reach the profundity and the depth of skylark's natural music, the divine music. The idea that the bird and song transcend the limits of earthly existence, and that the bird has an inner knowledge potentially available to humanity is fundamental to the poem and creates a subtle tension. The poem is almost unique among Shelley's work. Its strange form of stanza with 4 compact lines and 1 very long line, and its lilting song-like diction, perfuse stain of unpremeditated art work to create the effect of spontaneous poetic expression flowing musically and naturally from poet's self and poet's mind. Its unconventional form features a song-like rhyme scheme and bouncy rhythm that subtly mimic the skylark's calls. The speaker champions skylark as an example of nature's divinity and majesty, something the poem implies the human being will never fully understand. So the skylark's skill is greater than the rhythm of any beautiful sound or any precious piece of information that can be found in books. No words could fully grasp the magnificence of the skylark, and thus the speaker feels the human being and artists in particular have much to learn from the bird. And the closing stanza, better than all the measure of delightful sound, better than all the treasure that in books are found, Thy skill to poet were thou scorner of ground. So this divine creature, which is not earthbound but flying higher, has some source of inspiration which provokes him into this tuneful melody, and it surpasses all measures of delightful sound and all treasure which one can find in human written texts. Thank you.